Who is Dave Ramsey? In 2025, I saved nothing in my sinking funds. Absolutely nothing. They're empty. Hey, my frugal friends, welcome and welcome back to my channel, Frugality Is Life. Thank you so much for joining me. I know I have a few people here that are new, and I want to say thank you so much for joining my journey. Welcome. It's really great to have you guys. And for those returning, as always, thank you so much. All right, so this video is a little bit controversial, a little bit of like get to know me, a little bit of everything smashed into one, and this is only for entertainment purposes only. None of this video is gonna be anything like financial advice. I'm just gonna tell a little bit about me, a little bit, controversial things. We're gonna talk about it, okay? So the first thing is like, I grew up in the Caribbean. That's a mixture of my accent and all the things. I live in Canada. If you are new here, I am Jamaican, but I am also Canadian. And so I grew up in Jamaica. And growing up in Jamaica, you weren't necessarily taught about personal finance, but if there's one thing is that you see your family, paying the bills, getting furniture, whether that's like on credit. We in Jamaica, we have this furniture store that's called Quartz. There's a lot of furniture stores now, but back then there was this prominent, it's still there, called Quartz, where you go in, you shop for your furniture, you can take it on credit, and you pay back, a little bit at a time. And I remember my mom loved that store so much. So we see all these things. We see bills being paid, we see, food on the table, all the things. But there's one thing that is very, very popular in our culture, and I believe it's across the Caribbean and across Africa, is we call it in Jamaica partner, but in our accent you would hear somebody say partner, right? But it's called partner, right? I think some other parts of the world is called susu and different things. Let me know if you're from the Caribbean, or if you're watching and you're from Africa and you know what I'm talking about. Let me know what they call it in your region. But this is something where it originated, I believe, in Africa, somewhere there about, where people didn't have access to banks, or they didn't trust banks and didn't have access a lot of the times. And so what they would do is that they would have a banker, someone who is called the banker, right? And they would have other people participating in this. And so what they would do is you will set a certain amount. So you would say, okay, how many people do we want to do this? They're going to contribute the set amount of time every single week. The banker is going to hold the money, and each week somebody's going to get what they call a draw. So you're going to actually get your withdrawal, which is like the full bulk of money. So for example, say 10 people decide to participate, and it's $1,000 that is per what you call hand. So per contribution, you can have multiple hands in there. And so say it's 10 people, so 10 hands, right? What they will do is you put your $1,000 every week, and so everyone will get a spot. So either you are like first, second, third, fourth to get your draw. So when you get your draw, you're gonna get that. So 10 times 1,000, you're gonna get like $10,000, but minus the banker's fee. So you probably get like 9,000 because the banker keeps 1,000. And that's like the 1,000 that the banker keeps is like also for any sort of, if someone decides to drop out midway, or they don't pay the whole thing or whatever, the banker has to put that money in. And so they usually use that one hand that everyone contribute for any kind of things like that. If no one drops out and stuff, it's like their payment. But anyway, so this is something that goes on in the Caribbean. It goes on, I believe, in Africa and different parts of the world, where people do this. So they don't put their money in the bank. They have a person that's a banker that they would bring their money to. So every week they bring their money. So if you have one hand, two hands, you can have any amount, right? And so you decide when you want your withdrawal or when you want your draw. And based on how many people and everyone agrees on when the draw is, or mainly the banker does, right? Then you will get your withdrawal and you will get your full amount. So in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, I remember my mom getting her. She was the banker a lot of the times. She was the banker. I think I've 9 out of 10 times she was always a banker, and so she would, write down in a book all the people's names, when, how many hands, when did they pay, if they haven't paid, and different things. Like us as kids, she would send us for the money sometimes. So she would be like, go down to Mr. So and so and collect their partner money. So you will get your hand this withdrawal, and you can buy furniture. People have used it to build houses, all these things, because they didn't trust the banks, or this was a good system. You can look it up to see where it originated and why and all the things, but it was primarily because people didn't have access to banks, and then they didn't trust banks, and so they build a community where they trust and believe that they could have easy access to the money when they wanted it. So this still goes on today in Jamaica. So anyway, so I grew up seeing that. That's what I saw about like money, but it's still saving. It was still them saving money. So that's why I'm saying, like, you can save money. This is a third world country. This is like, there are people who doesn't have food on the table. People doesn't have proper, the right clothes or all the things, but they were contributing into this, getting their, withdrawal, and building a life, whether it's buying a car, whether it's building a house, whether, like, they would use this money, and this way to save it. So when they give it to the banker, they won't spend it, right? Like, you don't spend it because you give it to the banker. So it's like the bank keeping your money, but it's an actual person that you trust and So this is what I grew up seeing. Okay, so I went to school, I studied, finance, and so I remember all of this. And so I was just like, I grew up seeing my dad like very frugal too, and different things like that. So this is built into me. So when my mom would get the money, I remember her wrapping it up in like whatever she had, like it would be envelopes, whatever, and she would put it under the mattress of the bed, and that would be the safekeeping under the mattress, the mattress on the bed. So she would put it in envelopes. She would, when people are getting their draw, she would, she would get the money out. She'll put it in an envelope, and she will send it to Mr. So and so or Miss So and so, for them to get their draw. And like when it's her time, she would put hers in an envelope, and she'll be saying, okay, this is what they send, this is what they send, this. They were cash stuffing back then. Okay, so anyways, when I started my YouTube channel, I think it was 2023 or 2024, 2023, I think. I came into this community, and I heard a lot about, Dave Ramsey and, all these different things. But I was like, I don't know who Dave Ramsey is, right? So I decided to do a research, and I read briefly about Dave Ramsey, and yeah, I had no idea. Like, I found out about Dave Ramsey in maybe 2024, and that was from this community. I had no idea, but I was able to save money, migrated to Canada, paid down like debt. In 2024, my debt, like my husband and I paid off about $28,000 in debt, became debt free. And that was just, my husband is a truck driver, so he had a truck, but it was a lot of like the engine went down, and it cost like $30K to fix, and like that was where we had that debt. And like prior to that, we had some debt from my car that was like a lemon. So this is where our debt came from. But we paid on all that money. I said that to say, like, we did all that. We didn't know anything about Dave Ramsey. So we did all of that because I kind of know, and we kind of know, we've seen our parents go through different things with finance, and we know that, listen, if you save, if you pay your debt, you'll be successful. Like, you will have money, right? I didn't grow up seeing my parents invest, but investing is a way to build wealth, because your investments can grow faster than putting the money in the bank and just saving it there, right? Like, investments is how people build wealth. But anyways, long story short, I'm just saying, I had no idea who he was until late 2024 when I heard, a lot of talks of this person in the budgeting community. I know he has, helped a lot of people, educating them about personal finance, because as I said, like, a lot of people you go to school, you learn about finance and business, but it's more towards businesses and corporate. It's not personal. And so if you don't take, aspects of that to implement into your life, it's difficult. So we're not talking about for personal finance. So I applaud anyone who teaches personal finance something, right? So people can have something to go off. So if you're saying, oh, you didn't know Dave Ramsey, but how are you cash stuffing? Well, I told you the origin of that. I saw my mom cash stuffing when I was a child. So a lot of people think, maybe this was originated from Dave Ramsey and different things. No, it wasn't. Like my mom, I grew up seeing my mom cash stuffing. She had her partner saving money, people saving their money and in cash, right? Putting it in envelopes. So it was maybe an old concept that, he made popular, but not the originator. And that's absolutely fine. You don't necessarily have to be the originator. You just need to communicate it so other people can know and learn. So nothing wrong with that, but just to show that I knew about this from I was growing up. So that's one thing. I didn't know who Dave Ramsey was, but I was able to pay my debt. I was able to do my cash stuffing. I was able to save money, and that was fine. The other thing is sinking funds. So we know sinking funds are very, very popular. We know the purposes of it. We know how good they are. But guess what? In 2025, I saved nothing in my sinking funds. Absolutely nothing. They're empty. And I didn't unstuff this. If you watch my unstuffing video from last year, you'll see that you didn't see me unstuff anything in sinking funds. I didn't even talk about sinking funds because the entire year I didn't stuff $1 in my sinking funds. No, you may be saying, Fiona, what? Wait, what are you talking about? Yeah, I saved nothing in my sinking funds. Now, am I worried that I don't have money in my abundance fund, my birthday fund, my special projects, my household, my car maintenance, my clothing? No, I'm not. Because I saved a bulk of money that you guys saw that went to the bank. I saved over 30K, 25,000 of which I was left in the bank. So I'm not worried. That can cover all these. So am I worried that I don't have something more saying abundance fund? How much money is in it? Birthday? How much money? No, I'm not. I have money in the bank. So I love sinking funds and I love to distribute our money and like put titles. But guys, not all the time title is important. Having that money there, I can divide it however I choose and I would like. Now, is it the wisest thing to do in everyone's eyes? Maybe not. Because if you are not good about money and you have that chunk of money there, you can say, hey, I have this chunk of money, I can go spend it however. But if you are someone who is responsible enough to know that, hey, I have this money there, it's not technically earmarked for, abundance fund, travel, birthday. But I can, if I have something I need to pay, I can pay it out of it. My bank does not give me buckets. And so regardless of me separating the money here, in the bank, it's just one lump sum of money. So I'm just going, the point of this is, as long as you have the money, right? And you in your head, okay, I have the money in the bank. If something comes up, I can use it, right? That's fine. That's fine for me, at least. Like, I don't necessarily have to have everything earmarked. I would love to have it earmarked so I could actually, see an assignment. But if I assign $1,000 from abundant fund and $500 to car maintenance, but then the car maintenance amount comes out to $1,500, do you think I'm just gonna say, oh, I only have $500 in car, so I'm not gonna use $1,000 that I have in my abundant fund? No, I'm gonna pull the $1,000 from abundant fund and pay it towards a car. I'm just trying to say that if you have a lot of money, it's there for any necessities you need. It doesn't necessarily have to be earmarked, right? Earmarking it just in your head gives it a purpose, but it doesn't say that if something comes up that you need more than what is in that specific bucket, that you're not going to pull from other buckets, right? So I am comfortable knowing that I have a certain money in the bank. and it's not necessarily earmarked for anything specific, but I know I have money there. Okay, so yeah, so you may be saying, Fiona, you didn't stuff sinking funds. I mean, you talk about sinking funds all the time. I do, because they are great to have structure in your budget and structure in allocating money and structure for when you want to pay something. You know, okay, I saved this amount for this, I saved this amount for this, and you can pull from there first. But if you have money elsewhere and the amount is more than what is in that account, you're going to use it regardless. So for me, I love my sinking funds. I love knowing money is there, but it's not detrimental if I have all my money in like a lump sum in the bank. No, it's not. So that is one thing another thing that's a little bit controversial about me, and that I did it last year. I just saved my money. I didn't put it in sinking funds. I just did a whole bunch of saving challenges and I saved my money. And then I just put the whole thing in the bank. And I didn't say, oh, I'm putting 1,000 to abundant fund. No. I just saved a whole bunch of money and I put it in the bank. And guess what? I'm probably going to do the same thing this year. I may allow some money and allocate it into sinking funds. Maybe. But the goal is saving money. I don't want, if you should take away anything out from that, is just to save money. Save the money. Save the money. The money is important. It is the most important. It's not the categories. The categories are important. Don't. I'm not taking away from that. But the money is most important. Without the money, it doesn't even make sense having categories because there's $0 in anything, right? So focus on saving the money and then doing your allocation. That comes next. It's great to say, I want $1,000 in abundance fund, $15 in that. It gives you a goal and something to work towards, right? And that's why I did my calculation and I said, I want to save 30K. Why do you think I said I wanted to save 30K? That's because I think that is just pushing me ahead and making sure that I have money for all the things that I would need the money for, like saving funds and other bills and expenses. So I determined just a bulk amount that I want to save each year and just work towards that, regardless of, different categories. Because in the bank, I'm not looking at categories anyway. I'm looking at a bulk of money because my bank doesn't give me buckets, right? Okay, so let's get on with it. So the next thing, a little bit controversial, is I was doing a video one time and someone left a comment and they said, oh, something about 4 walls. And I'm like, 4 walls? What are you talking about 4 walls? I had no idea. This was like maybe last year, 2025. And I was like, 4 walls? And I didn't get it, right? So anyways, I did some research and then I realized it's also connected with Dave Ramsey and what he teaches about making sure your 4 walls are covered before paying debt, etc. Which I totally agree. But I just didn't know anything about 4 walls because remember, I only found out about Dave Ramsey loosely in the end of 2024 thereabout. And so I just did a quick search, like who is Dave Ramsey, and it, gives me a little thing. But my whole financial journey was not influenced by Dave Ramsey, and so I had no idea what 4 walls was. So I started to look it up because when I heard 4 walls, I was thinking 4 walls. That sounds like something like confined. Like when you think about 4 walls, you're thinking about you're confined. There's no freedom. Like I was thinking something like that. But then when I researched, I realized it was talking about like your food, your utilities, transportation. Like those things are your shelter. Those are your 4 walls that you're covering before you do anything else, which I agree, making sure that you cover your essentials. I will just say these are essentials, non-negotiables, but apparently there's a word for it or words for it. All right, the other thing is $1,000 emergency fund. When I came into the budgeting community, I kept hearing, oh, we need to get to $1,000 emergency fund. We need 1,000. And I'm like, what? Again, guys, my whole journey was not influenced at all by Dave Ramsey. So when I came in and I'm hearing all these things, I was like, where are we getting $1,000 from? Like, then again, I had to go searching, like, why do people think they need $1,000? No, I think $1,000 is a great start, right? If you have no money at all, getting to $1,000 is a great start. But a lot of people, your rent is not $1,000. Like, you spend more on groceries, you spend more on other things. So I was wondering, why are we getting to 1,000? So anyways, I did my research and I realized also it was associated with Dave Ramsey, where he said, get $1,000 emergency fund and then pay your debts. And I was like, okay, fine. As I said, I believe something is better than nothing. But what is controversial, and I don't believe you ever stop saving for an emergency fund. I actually don't even call it emergency fund. I call it abundance fund, because I never want to, use words to kind of trigger anything. So I don't talk about that. I try to be positive, and so I'm talking about an abundance fund, something that keeps growing. So I believe you never stop saving. And even when you're paying debt, newsflash, I don't believe you stop saving. So a lot of people think, you save this 1,000 and then you go pay all your debt and you save nothing more. But guess what? If something comes up where you need more money than that $1,000, you know what's going to happen? You're back into debt. No, I believe you continue to save and you continue to pay your debt. You do both at once. That's what I believe. That's how I was able to pay off my debt and buy a house a year later, me and my husband. If we were paying off our $28,000, and it was more from before, but anyway, let's just focus on $28,000. If we were paying the $28,000, if we had $1,000 in the bank, and then we worked and paid the $28,000, and then at the end of it, we would have what? Nada, nothing to purchase a house, to save for a deposit. Like, we would have to be starting fresh to save for a down payment. How long would it take us to do that? Years, because time matters. So the time that you take to pay off all those debts, like some people have a lot of debt, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you are only saving $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, and then you stop and you decide, hey, I'm just going to focus on paying debt for the next 10 years, where are you going to get the money from when you're done paying all that debt to do things, to live life? If something occurred, to pay for something that occurred. I don't understand. So I believe, controversial or not, that you pay debt while saving. You never stop saving. Because if something comes up, you need money, and you don't have it, you're going to go right back into debt. So I strongly believe that you have to do both at once. You have to save while you're paying down debt. And that's just what I believe, okay? All right, the next thing is a zero-based budget. Now, you can look at this any way you like. A zero-based budget, I believe in, but with a buffer. That's the only way I believe you should have a zero-based budget. Like, you need a buffer. This is life. Things happen. And then you're going to say, yeah, but that's why we have sinking funds and emergency fund and all these. Absolutely. But when I do my budget, in my mind, this is what I think. The money I save and I put in the bank is great. It's there. But you know how I live? I still live paycheck to paycheck. That's just how I live. And you may be saying, like, what, Fiona? What do you mean you live paycheck to paycheck? I live paycheck to paycheck. So I put my money in savings and put it in the bank. I don't want to touch it unless I absolutely necessarily have to. So I wait on my paycheck. I budget my paycheck. I leave a buffer. Always there's a buffer. No, it could be small. Like, it could be $50. It could be $100. Small amount. But I leave an amount always in my... I do a zero-based budget. But there's a line called buffer where I put an amount in there as well. And so I spend out of that budget and I wait for my next check to come and I do the same. And I wait for my next check to come and I do the same. Because in my head, the money that's in the bank, I don't want to touch it. I want to save it. I want to invest it. I don't want to touch it unless I absolutely have to. And so I push myself to live paycheck to paycheck. Meaning, this is my meaning of it though. Everyone has a different meaning. I want to make sure that what I'm earning is what I'm using to live my life. I don't want to be overspending. I don't want to be overreaching. I don't want to live above my means. And therefore, I confine myself to what's on my paycheck. So in my paycheck, I have my necessities, my essentials, my bills. I pay them. I pay myself, which I send a certain amount to investing and, you know, like high yield savings account and different investments. And then whatever I pay, like my variables, like I have money for my variables, and then I set aside money for my saving challenges and for cash stuffing, which is additional savings. And I do that, and then I wait for my next paycheck to come, and I do the same thing. I don't want to ever like be tapping into money that is in the bank if I don't have to. And so I wait on my paycheck to come, and that is how I live. So in my head, that's my idea of how I am living paycheck to paycheck. So it may not be the standard definition, but it's my definition. I make sure that how I'm living my life, I am restricting myself. So I am waiting on my paychecks to do things. Although I'm saving and I'm investing and I have money in the bank, I'm just waiting on my paycheck. And so that's that. So if there's something that, someone wants, so like my friends, oh, can we go out to dinner next week? I need to put in my budget. Yeah, sometimes I have things saved, like, my sinking funds or different things, and I have to pull from those. But I don't want to go into the bank and pull money just to go out to dinner or use, you know what I mean? I want to be able to put that in my budget and do it. Not all the times we work out that way, but that's how I prefer it. So that's my way of saying I live paycheck to paycheck. It's like I budget everything, I pay all my bills, I do everything, and then bills, and then I wait for my next paycheck to come, and I do the same thing. That's it. So, what do you think about all my controversial topics? Let me know below. Did you surmise any of these that this was how Fiona lived? Did you think like, I knew anything about their Ramsey starting? What do you think? But here, those are my 5 controversial things. And just things about me. Whether they're controversial or not, it's my life. And I mean, this is just how it is. So I didn't start my channel because I heard about, the Ramsey, and I wanted to follow his baby steps. And I knew nothing about that. Not until the end of 2024. I still don't know the whole shebang. But I know a little bit here and there. I absolutely love what he's doing, because as I said, a lot of people don't learn about personal finance, and it's a way to learn. Like, someone teaching you something that you didn't learn, and you cannot take away from that. So, was I influenced by it? No, because I absolutely didn't know who Dave Ramsey was. But it doesn't matter. The end goal is what matters. Saving, paying off debt, investing, building wealth. So thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, keep budgeting, stay frugal, and tell me one controversial thing about you. Bye.